They say blood is thicker than water. But in my experience, blood just makes a bigger mess when your family stabs you in the back. My older brother, Mark, didn't just kick me out of the apartment I invited him into. He tried to humiliate me in front of our parents. He called me a leech, a loser, a waste of space. He literally tossed my clothes into the hallway and told me to find a real job. There was just one small detail Mark forgot to check before he tried to evict me. He thought I was crashing on his couch. He didn't realize I was his landlord. Let me back up a bit so you understand how we got here. My name is David. Growing up, I was always the quiet one. While my brother Mark was the star athlete, the golden child, and the one getting his MBA, I was locked in my room, coding. Mark loved the spotlight, I loved the work. By the time I was 22, I had sold my first software patch. By 24, I had sold my second company. I wasn't just comfortable, I was retired. But here's the thing, I hate flashiness. I hate fake friends who only like you for your wallet. So, I bought a luxury apartment complex in the city under an anonymous LLC, moved into the penthouse, and kept wearing my hoodies. Nobody knew I had money. Not even my parents. I wanted them to love me for me, not my bank account. About 6 months ago, Mark hit a rough patch. He lost his high-flying corporate job and his fiancée in the same week. He was broke and desperate. So, being the good brother, I told him, "Come stay with me. I have a spare room. No rent until you get back on your feet." The first month was fine. But by month 3, Mark's attitude started to change. Because I worked from home, managing my investments from my laptop, Mark assumed I was unemployed. He'd come home from his new entry-level sales job, see me on the couch, and just sneer. He'd say things like, "Must be nice, David. Sitting around in your pajamas while the adults work. Did you even clean the kitchen today?" I brushed it off. I didn't tell him that I was paying the electricity, the internet, the food, everything. But Mark started acting like he was the head of the household just because he put on a tie in the morning. He genuinely believed that because he had a 9 to 5, he was better than me. It all came to a head last Tuesday. Mark started dating a new girl, Sarah. She was just as status-obsessed as he was. I walked into the living room, my living room, to get a glass of water, and they were sitting there on the sofa. Mark looked at me with total disgust and said, "David, can you make yourself scarce? Sarah and I are trying to have a conversation without clutter." Clutter. That's what he called me. I put my glass down calmly and said, "Mark, we need to talk about respect." He laughed in my face. He actually laughed. He said, "Respect? You want respect? Pay rent. Oh wait, you can't. You're a mooch, David. Mom and Dad are ashamed of you. In fact, I'm done carrying you." The next day, Mark invited our parents over. I thought it was a family dinner. I was wrong. It was an eviction party. We were barely 5 minutes into the meal when Mark stood up. He looked at our parents and said, "Mom, Dad, I love David, but I can't enable him anymore. He's lazy. He refuses to work. I'm paying for everything here, and he's dragging me down. I'm kicking him out tonight." My mother looked at me with tears in her eyes. She said, "David, maybe it's time you grew up. Mark is working so hard, you can't just take advantage of him." They believed him. They actually believed Mark was paying for the penthouse. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just looked at my brother and asked him one question. I said, "Are you sure you want to do this? Legally?" Mark puffed up his chest and shouted, "Legally. It's my lease, David. I'm the one with the job. Get your stuff and get out." That was the moment I decided to end it. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and put it on speaker. I dialed the building manager, Mr. Henderson. The room went quiet as the phone rang. Mr. Henderson picked up immediately and asked, "Good evening, sir. Is there an issue with the penthouse?" I looked Mark dead in the eye and said into the phone, "Yes, Mr. Henderson. I have a guest, a Mr. Mark Reynolds. He seems to be under the impression that he holds the lease to Unit 1A. Can you please clarify for the room who the owner of this building is?" There was a pause. You could hear a pin drop. Then, Mr. Henderson's voice came through crystal clear. He said, "I don't understand. You own the building, David. You bought the complex 3 years ago via Orion Holdings. Is Mr. Reynolds bothering you? Should I call security?" I hung up the phone. The silence in that room was heavy. My parents looked like they had seen a ghost. Mark's face went from red to a pale, sickly white. I walked over to the drawer where I kept the deed and tossed the folder onto the dinner table. "You're not on the lease, Mark," I told him. "You're a guest. A guest who hasn't paid a dime in rent, food, or utilities for 6 months. A guest who just tried to kick the owner out of his own house." Mark started stammering. He tried to backtrack, saying, "Dave, come on. It was tough love. I was trying to motivate you." I didn't know. I shook my head. "You didn't know because you never asked," I said. "You just judged. You saw a hoodie and assumed loser. You saw kindness and assumed a weakness." I pointed to the door. "You wanted me out? Fine. But since this is my property, I get to decide who stays. You have 1 hour to pack your bags." "And Mark?" "If you're not out in 60 minutes, Mr. Henderson calls the police for trespassing." Mark scrambled to pack his things. He tried to get our parents to mediate, to tell me I was being too harsh. But once I showed them the bank statements, and showed them exactly how much money I had silently given Mark over the years to help him out, their sympathy evaporated. They were furious with him, not me. Mark is currently staying at a cheap motel on the edge of town. I heard he's actually looking for a second job now to pay his bills. I guess he finally got that motivation he was talking about. As for me, I'm enjoying the peace and quiet of my apartment. And I finally hired a cleaner. She respects me a hell of a lot more than my brother ever did.